What's going on, guys? Vulkan here, and today we're taking a look at the top RPG games coming in 2021 and beyond. Now, most of these games are coming on PC and console, so you should be covered if there's one that you're interested in. Now, make sure to drop a comment with your most anticipated game because I'm curious to see what everyone is looking forward to. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get this countdown started. So coming in at number 10 is Biomutant, an open-world action RPG that features a progression system like Destiny and combat that resembles Devil May Cry. This game was first announced in 2017 and has been slated to release pretty much every year after that, but this time around the studio promises we should see Biomutant in the second quarter of this year, which puts it between April and June, and this one will be releasing on PC and consoles. So the game itself is touted as a post-apocalyptic kung fu fable type game and features combat that combines shooting, melee, martial arts, and a whole bunch of skills to use and build around. So I'm really looking forward to this game. I mean, Biomutant's been on my list really since it got announced, and each year I'm looking forward to it, and then each year I'm disappointed because it's not here. They're taking their time. They want to make sure the game is ready, and I really want to see how it came together after all of these years. I mean, you're a mouse fighting mutated animals in a big little world. What is not to love about that? Number 9 is Warhammer Darktide, which is a 4-player co-op game from the studio behind Warhammer Vermintide. But this time around, you're going to be taking control of characters from the 40k universe, which means we get the same melee combat from Vermintide combined with ranged combat like lasguns or bolters. Now, we don't know too much about this one yet other than some light information on the Steam page and a few news posts, but they did reveal this gameplay trailer to give us a taste of what's to come. And just like previous games, Darktide will feature a progression system that rewards players with skill points when they level up and gear when they complete missions. Now, Darktide is expected to release in 2021 on PC and consoles, but they haven't gotten any sort of release date out yet. And just as a side note, if you guys haven't had a chance to play Vermintide 2 in a full party or at least co-op, definitely make some time to do that. It's an incredibly fun game, and so with Darktide building on the foundation that Vermintide has laid and mixing in a shooter aspect, I'm really excited for this one. Coming in at number 8 is Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood, which is a long name, and this game is based on a tabletop RPG, but unlike the tabletop game, you get to control Kahal, a human who can transform into a werewolf and just tear enemies apart. Very brutal, visceral game. And this game focuses on a battle between the Garu, which are the werewolf people, and Indron, an oil company that serves the Worm, which is a spirit hell-bent on ravaging the planet. So some pretty heavy stuff going into the story of this game. Now, the actual gameplay elements of Werewolf are pretty varied depending on how you want to play. So players will have the ability to stay as Kahal, as a human, to interact with other humans and maybe negotiate your way into secret areas or through the story. You can also transform into a wolf to use stealth to sneak past enemies, or you can just go all out, claws out as a werewolf, use brute force, and just tear everything apart and take what you want to. Now look, I'm going to be honest with you guys, this game was not on my radar until some more gameplay reveals came out, and then those started kind of piquing my interest a little bit. Now I'm hoping we get to see a decent game here that plays and performs well. I'm not expecting this one to win Game of the Year, but it does look like a fun action RPG that kind of brings a different element to the gaming universe. So Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood releases on February 4th on consoles and the Epic Games Store. Coming in at number 7 is one we haven't heard too much about, and that's Babylon's Fall. So this game was released in 2018 at E3 and then quickly fell off the radar after that until Sony's State of the Play event in December 2019, where we basically just heard that it was alive and we saw a little bit of a teaser. After that, we received a small update in July 2020 that Platinum Games was still hard at work developing the game. And honestly, guys, I'm a little skeptical about Platinum Games. I mean, both Scalebound and Granblue Fantasy Relink were both mishandled by that studio. So it's safe to say that my faith is not an all-time high with them. So hopefully we get a nice showing for this game this year to learn more about it, because right now we are kind of grasping at straws, but it's still on my list. I'm still interested. Hopefully we can just see a little bit more. Up next at number 6, we have Gotham Knights, the DC equivalent of Marvel's Avengers minus the live service aspect. The dev studio decided to kind of buck that trend and just keep things simple. So this game is described as an open world action RPG co-op brawler that lets you party up and play with a friend. That's correct, a single friend because this game has a maximum party size of 2. It can also be played offline if you're into that. You can play it solo. And the world of Gotham is split into 5 boroughs that you can freely explore. And while there is a story to follow that kind of guides you through these different boroughs, you can always take a break and just literally explore everywhere and patrol for crime. Now the game has all of the fixings of a typical RPG these days. You can play as one of the Gotham Knights, so the Red Hood, Robin, Batgirl, or Nightwing, and you'll level up that hero to earn skill points to spend on new abilities so you can kill more bad guys and loot some cosmetics. So there is no like confirmation if Gotham Knights has a gear system like Avengers, but I think it's safe to say as long as they steer clear of like battle passes and monetization, it should do well as a co-op game that you can just play with some friends. Now the developers did hint at there possibly being story DLC down the road, but that isn't confirmed or something they want to talk about right now. They just want to focus on getting Gotham Knights out the door. And it is slated to release in 2021 on PC and consoles. Coming in hot at number 5, we have Elden Ring, which is probably the most anticipated game on this list. So Elden Ring is the latest game under development at From Software, who are the creators of Dark Souls, and this is a joint effort with George R.R. Martin, the creator of Game of Thrones. And all of this means that the game will probably be released in the next 50 years when George finally passes away or finishes his book and his unknown son takes over to finally finish the job. But for real, I mean, this game has vanished into thin air after its reveal in 2019, and while we know the game is still coming because From Software has put out a couple tweets and posts saying the game is still in development, we don't really know anything today that we didn't know at the reveal. So what is Elden Ring? Well, we know the game is going to be an open world built with exploration in mind, and it's going to be reminiscent of a Dark Souls game, and that's about it. So there's lots of questions as to what this game will share with previous Dark Souls titles. Will it have invasions? How will the narrow world design translate into an open world design? Will it be as ruthless as previous games? Or will they take a lighter approach because the game is built with exploration as the forefront? So there are just lots of unknowns with this game, and hopefully we'll see a big announcement with a just deluge of information at E3 or maybe a gaming show this year if we have those with COVID. But honestly, Elden Ring is still one of those games that's going to be on these lists because it comes from such a powerhouse studio, and the partnership with George R.R. Martin is going to bring in fans and it's going to bring in a lot of hype. Sitting at number 4 is Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, the hack and slash action RPG with the kind of hardcore parkour trailer released back in 2019, like the GoPro style trailer. And this game is a reboot of the cult classic Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance that released back in 2001. But this time around, they chose a third-person over-the-shoulder perspective instead of a top-down perspective to help make the melee combat feel more visceral. So Dark Alliance lets you play in the single player or in a group of 4 as couch co-op or online co-op, which is great for having friends over and getting to play together. And each player gets to choose a hero to play as: Dritz Duerden, Catti-brie, Brunar, or Wulfgar, and all have their own playstyle, all of their own skills, so there should be something for just about everybody. So the real draw here is that Dark Alliance is aiming to be a game where you can kick back, slice up some bad guys solo or with friends, and just have a good time. They want players to be able to experience the game whether you're a massive D&D fan or not one at all, but your first time diving into this world. Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance is looking to release this year on both PCs and consoles. Number 3 brings a looter shooter to the mix, Outriders. So this game is bucking the live service trend and releasing as a complete package with no microtransactions or cash shop, which honestly seems like a breath of fresh air these days. And on top of that, the game will feature full crossplay, meaning you can play with anyone on most platforms. So in Outriders, you're known as an altered and get to choose from 4 classes: the Devastator, the Technomancer, the Trickster, or the Pyromancer. Each has their own abilities, skill trees, and legendary items to chase after. The game gives players a decent story to play through before reaching their end game called Expeditions, and these are custom dungeons which function similar to like Mythic Plus dungeons in World of Warcraft, where you're racing against the clock. The faster you clear a dungeon, the more loot you can earn. If you fail to beat the clock, you still get gear, but just not as much. It also offers a deep itemization system with flexible weapon and armor mods, legendary gear sets, and crafting. This game has quickly become one of the more anticipated looter shooters on the horizon, and Outriders will be releasing on April 1st on PC and consoles. There is a demo coming February 25th that'll let you play the first few hours of the game with all 4 classes. Coming in at number 2, we have Witchfire, and this is one I don't really see or hear anything about, but I think this has some serious potential. So Witchfire is a dark fantasy shooter that brings a really great aesthetic and design to the table. The game is being developed by the folks behind Bulletstorm, the classic shooter Painkiller, and a fiction mystery game called The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, which I think might help give this game a stronger story than we typically see in first-person shooters. So the game gives players different weapons and spells and skills to help build your character the way you want to and mold you into a more efficient killing machine. Now, we aren't sure if this is a true looter shooter at this point, like a Destiny or a Division, but we do know that the game features hordes of enemies, interesting loot, legendary loot, and a leveling system. So Witchfire has been in development since 2017, and I feel like it's getting really close to an official reveal. I mean, they've been in full production for about a year and some change. They're putting out constant development updates showing different parts of the game that they're working on and different kind of conversations they're having behind closed doors, which is really cool. So if you're someone who's big into game design, things like that, then I highly recommend going out and checking out their website. And when it comes to release, we do know Witchfire is coming on PC, but I'm not sure about consoles at this time. And lastly, number 1 is Dying Light 2, which honestly stole the show for some at E3 2019 with its visuals, its parkour system, and the game is described as an action RPG survival horror that focuses on melee combat that builds on the foundation from the first game. First game was great, absolutely loved it. But in Dying Light 2, you're going to be asked to make some tough decisions and hard sacrifices to help rebuild society. And these choices are going to have effects that ripple throughout the game and really influence how the city recovers. It's also going to affect who your enemies are and who your friends are. And if this all sounds too serious, you can bring some friends along with you and help you make those decisions through the campaign. You can also pop into their game and see how their different choices affected their game in different ways. When it comes to gameplay, Dying Light focuses on its first-person perspective and keeps that day and night cycle, where the infected are more lumbering and sleepy during the day, kind of hiding in the shadows, but when nighttime comes around, it brings enemies into the streets and makes them much more aggressive, very World War Z-like, which is great. Now, they build off this system and give players areas to explore that are only available during certain times of day to help encourage that exploration and risk-reward. Do you want to go into that building during the daytime, where there's a ton of slower enemies, but they're more densely packed? Or do you want to go in there during nighttime, where the enemies are out in the streets, but if you do run into some in that building, they're going to be much more dangerous? So I do like those type of things. I'm glad that Dying Light 2 is taking exploration seriously, and I think this is going to be a solid game. And honestly, this one's been in the top half of my list since its reveal, and I'm glad that we're finally going to get our hands on it this year on PC and consoles. So that's it, folks. Which game is your favorite on this list? Let's sound off below. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for the support. This is Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.